I was blessed with a great competitor. What was the perception of our industry? It's dirty. So what did they do? They put white trucks out there. They got their guys dressed up totally different than us. So finally we said, no, the heck of it. We're going to just give high dress standards and give them a reason to dress better. Bless your competition, because if you're paying attention, they can make you better.
Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I am Chief Brainiac over here at Base Coat Marketing. And if you own a painting business and you're listening in, you are in the right place. Today, I'm joined by Al Levi. He is author of the book, The Seven Power Contractor. I was on a mission to help contractors run their business with less stress and more success, which I think we can all get behind. So if you are a contractor drowning in fires or still working behind the brush, this episode is for you. Al, first of all, I know you're a busy man, so thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here.
I am always happy. I struggled, like many of you who are listening. And I believe if people came into your life and helped you, and I worked hard to get to this, and have been doing coaching for 20 years now, in my second career that I would only do for 10 years, just so I would stay married after I left my first job. I feel that you have an obligation to help, and that's what I hope to do here today with Austin.
Awesome. And hey, look, it sounds like you've been doing coaching before coaching was cool. Now it seems to be pretty mainstream, right?
It is. There's only a million ways to be coached today. And even I have changed, because originally I left to do one-to-one. And it was very satisfying for me to do one-to-one, because let's face it, most of us, if you're a tech or in contracting, you like to know how things work. So I get to flip the hood up and then work on the engine. So that was one of the great things to do. And then technology, of course, changed. And originally the way I got known, quote unquote, was because I wrote for trade magazines. And the reason I got known by trade magazines is because of the innovative things that we had done at our company. And ours was a very old line company. It was started in 1936 out of my grandfather's gas station. I hope that impresses you, because what that means is I was third generation with my two older brothers. And today I'm proud to say that my nephew, the fourth generation, has been there. I am gone 23 years, and they are still rocking and rolling. My middle brother is still there. And that takes systems, which is what I want to talk to you today.
Yeah, let's go back in time a little bit. So I actually want to get to know who Al is, where you got started, how you got into this position that you're in today. So take us back in time, sometime before you got here today and after birth.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a family Nepo baby, if you can call it that. My friend Ellen Rohr, who's a phenomenal person in the financial aspect of things, and she was a contractor in plumbing, and she was losing money left and right. And she finally found a guy in the magazine, going back to ancient history when people would read magazines in the trades. And she learned how to do this, and she also set out on a mission to do that. So we became very fast friends back in the 90s. And so, it's just a case of finding the right people to kind of intersect. And then for me, being a talkative New Yorker, is shut up long enough to listen to smart people and then do something. Because the question I'm going to ask you right off the bat, everyone who's listening here, is, do you need another great idea, or do you need another great idea implemented? And of course, it's the second thing.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on that if we want to go that direction. But Austin drives and I'm in the back seat, so we're ready to go.
No, look, let's actually start there, because I very firmly believe that success is not based on knowledge. You can know what to do, but not do what you know. It's those that actually take action. So let's talk about that. How do you go from somebody that is overwhelmed, who maybe doesn't even have time to work on the systems in their business, but who strives for that freedom? Where do they even find the time to get started on taking action on something?
Well, I think it's been said a million times, is that the democracy of time is what's really happened, is that, we all have the same amount of time. It's really what we do. So I will just bust myself with a quick story. I again, was born with a wrench in my crib, because Ellen teased me that, because we were in the fuel oil business, which I'll explain in a minute, is fuel oil back in the Northeast was a way to heat homes, like gas and propane. Think of propane more so, because it was delivery and things of that nature. So that was the business I was born in. We did plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, as well as fuel oil as we moved into those businesses. And that was my move because I knew there was only so much runway on the fuel oil business. But I was born into a commodity business. And I realized very quick when I came home from college that I've got to move us more to a niche. So it wasn't that you wanted fuel oil. You only wanted it from our company, OSI or Comfort Specialists. That's really what differentiates it. Because otherwise, for you guys, a painter is a painter is a painter, you know, the concrete coating guy. And not saying that's true. I'm saying that's the customer perception. And guess whose perception counts? Not yours, theirs. So your whole goal is to move yourself that way. Anyway, so I'm working in this thing, but I really was at work like most brats in the business. My dad would wake us up, he and my boys, and he'd pile us in the car and we'd go run a service call in the middle of the night. And I thought that was just so much fun because the people were so nice to us. And especially when we worked at bakeries and stuff, they would feed us. For some reason, my dad wasn't quite as excited to wake up in the middle of the night because he had worked all day. You guys are fortunately don't normally get that. But, you know, do they call you on weekends, nights? Sure they do. Because, you know, we're in a 24/7, 365 society where there are no boundaries. And, you know, it may feel frustrating, but I bet you do the same thing. When you pick up a phone or you call or you ask ChatGPT to do something, you don't care what the time frame is. So being able to serve customers the way they want to be served is really a big thing. So this thing about time, as I was saying, is we've all created it. I put together a time. Can I just share a quick story?
Go for it.
So when I moved from one-to-one and then I did group coaching, I had a great person who helped me write my book, The 7 Power Contractor, which I made very thin because I explained to my editor, I said, most of us contractors are dyslexic. And I didn't know it till later in my life that I was dyslexic. I just thought I was a slow reader. I was jumbling it. And then when we asked around more enough, that is true. But the other part of this goes to, I said, listen, if my business book is more than 150 pages, we failed. Because every great business book I read is typically 150 pages or less, because that's how crystalline I want it to be. She goes, do you have enough content? I go, I have an audience full of magazine articles, blog articles, and all of this stuff. And she goes, well, why do you need me? I said, Helena, there's an audience of 300 of my kids sitting out there going, pick me, pick me. And if I had, it would be just like a ransom note of stuff all over the place. I need you to get it lined up. And what the lineup is the 7 powers, which is planning power, operating power, staffing power, sales coaching power, marketing power, and finance. 7. Now you may think, wow, that's a lot. No, it isn't. I used to think there were 7 million things I had to get right because I was a pretty smart boy. I do have an engineering degree of which I never practiced a day in my life. I went off to school and 6 months a year I was in engineering school. And when I wasn't in school, guess what I was doing? Driving a truck, working in the business. So it was like my father's idea of a spring break, I always joke around, was that I got to drive a different truck. That was really kind of and you guys know what I'm talking about. And the point of this is the number one thing in that book that I share with everybody here is planning power is where guys would pay me 6 figures to come in and work for typically 18 months to 3 years to straighten out their business. And I'll come back to the types of businesses that I worked with in a minute. But basically, I always started with planning power because I knew they were just like me in that we have a billion ideas and which one do we do? And we get them started and then we forget about it and they get lost and they're off track. And it's very, very disheartening because I spoke to the guys at my own shop. Go, every time you go to some conference and you come back, you get a million great ideas, you're all excited, and they all just die. And he said it just takes the heart out of them because, they get trained to stand still because nothing's changing. It's just a lot of chaos. So basically what it is think of a funnel for a minute, and like an old-fashioned oil funnel, if you will. The top of the funnel is where all of the great ideas that you have goes on the master project list. That's what I call the top of the funnel. And that is not just projects to do, it's also habits. So what habits do you need to master? How to learn to do steps of delegation the right way, which is in writing. Not you walking down a hallway, looking into a room and go, hey, I need you to take care of straighten out the warehouse. And then a month later, you come back and the warehouse is not any different. I need you to get the trucks to be all model trucks. Month comes by, you don't get any of it. So your staff trains you. Don't delegate anything, because if you ask any contractor who is the best one for any job, it's me. I'm the best one. That's how I got to be here. But unless you know how to clone yourself, you got to learn how to lose that. And so there are formal steps to delegation. So that's not a project. That's a habit you have to get in. Steps of corrective action, which what do you do if they don't play ball by the rules that you've set up? But there are projects like I just rattled off, getting the warehouse in shape, getting the model truck set up. There's tons of it. So typically the master project is about, when I work with clients, 125 to 150 mix of projects and habits that you hope to accomplish in 3 to 5 years. So now understand, the next time you hear a wonderful podcast like me and Austin are doing today, and you have a great takeaway, before you forget, put it on the master project list. And then how does it move from the top of the funnel down? You have 2 strainers. One strainer is it fixes the biggest problem and challenge you have. So for instance, they drive an hour away from your shop. They haven't been trained well enough to do the painting or the coating or whatever work that you do. And so now somebody else has to run out there, or they're held up until they get more instruction. I'm talking about the 80% of the work you do, not everything, 100. Or else you do painting and coating, just to make it, if you would do both trades as an example. You can do the painting job, but across the street, it needs to be some repair to a coating job, and you're not set up to do it. You're not trained on it. The rest of it got to come all the way back. Somebody else got to go out there. So that's an example, just one example. Or you're botching the phone calls. You could have the best marketing company in the world, and we love to blame our marketing company for lack of success, but never blame ourselves, because we don't answer the phone. We don't answer the phone on the customer schedule, and we don't answer it professionally. And that's where the CSR, customer service rep, is so important. So what I talk about here is, I know this is kind of a quick dive into marketing. The goal of it is, think of a bathtub for a minute. Your job is to do 3 things. The right amount of calls from the right customer at the right time. And if you're any good, you overflow the bathtub. Because if you can do that and you have more demand than you could provide, then you get to charge what you want. You get to decide what kind of work you do and for how much money. Plus, it puts pressure on you in a good way to make more technicians. And once you learn how to master technicians, which I will speak to in staffing, that's all good. But if you have a bathtub and you have bad CSRs to no CSRs, or you think you can just use AI to do all your answering of calls, it's a drain wide open. And that's where you say, well, the calls aren't converting. Well, yeah, it's you. You're not doing your stuff. You're not systematic enough.
So Al, you mentioned something that I want to touch on here, because it's really important. I think a lot of guys look at where they want to be in the next, let's say 90 days, and they have a list of things they want to get done. And then they become overly ambitious about getting those things done in the next 90 days. You mentioned 18 months to 3 years, or 3 to 5 years. I mean, we're talking about long timeframes here. Most businesses fail in that time frame, right?
That's true.
How do you justify even creating a list that far in advance?
I'm glad you asked that question, because we don't stop at the master project list. What we do is use these 2 strainers: biggest problem challenge, like I said, or the greatest chance to grow and be profitable. So a marketing campaign, a direct mail postcard campaign, and testimonials are the sticky stuff that makes any of your marketing work or fail on its face. Because I'm not interested. I had a great mentor named Dan Hallahan, industry mentor, said to me, Al, I'm semi-interested in what you have to say about how great you are, but I really want to see what Austin says, because he's a customer that looks like me, lives by where I am, and had typically the same work. So your question is, can you have enough testimonials? Let me get to that. No, you can never have enough testimonials. And today, of course, video wins, because you can put it on your social media platforms. but video and photos, there's ways to use all of this stuff. So that would be a reason to grow and be profitable. So with that, we took all of that down to 30 projects and habits. And that is what you would accomplish in 1 year. You follow with me how we got down to 1 year? So the 30 projects and habits. I don't care how big your company is. I don't care how much money you have. You cannot work on 30 things at the same time effectively. All you will do is get 30 things all over the place and a mess again. So one more time, we take the same strain as projects and habits that will fix our biggest problem or challenge or greatest chance to grow and be profitable. And we arrive at our top five. Top five. The top five is a mixture of projects and habits. And there's a trick to that. You must define it well. You can't just go marketing, because are you ever going to stop marketing? No. So you want to introduce a direct mail postcard campaign, or you want to step up a social media push on Facebook ads, or whatever you want to be able to do. That has a beginning and end, at least for a point, and kind of works its way through. You want to create a marketing manual. There's all of these kinds of things. Those are a better definition of the project. Then the middle column is, why do we need it? Well, if we don't have enough phones, or we can't do what Al says about the bathtub and overflow it, that's a problem. We need to be able to get more selective about it. And the last column is called status. And that is where your team holds you accountable that we are working on it. And I actually make my customers put up a whiteboard. And to this day, it's still a whiteboard. You can do it digitally, all you want to do, but it's a whiteboard with 3 columns, because we're telling them what are the 5 things we're working on. Why are we working on it? What's the status? It's out in a place where they can all see it. That is not how you get anything done, Austin. It's out there for the number one thing, for your team to hold you accountable. Because if they don't see any changes, they go, oh, business as usual.
Yep.
So that's why I always do that with them. And your job, no matter how crazy your week is, either an owner-operator, a 3-truck outfit, whatever it is, I would call you up when I was doing support in Planning Power Remote and just go, okay, what did we get done this week on top 5? And there'd be a hesitation and go, it was a really crazy, but one of our trucks went off the road, and they just go on. And I go, I'm sorry, who picked top 5? I believe it was you, because you said those 5 things would fix your problem, challenge, greatest chance going to be profitable. So tell me what you were doing this week that was more important than that. And so that's where the train goes in the right direction. That's a long way home, but 3 to 5 years, 1 year, right now.
I love it. And, I can relate to that in so many ways. I have several business advisors that we invest a lot of time and money into. I firmly believe in business coaching as the shortcut to success. And I came up to a head in our company over here, where we found a repetitious pattern within our company that was not producing the results that we wanted. And I looked at that challenge, and I remember approaching one of my advisors and him saying, look, the next step is going to be hard. It's going to require climbing another mountain to get over that hurdle. And it took that intentional conversation around the fact that, hey, running a business is not easy. You chose the hard path, right? Now it's time to take action and get your hands dirty. And that needs to be okay sometimes. And I think as entrepreneurs, we can sometimes get comfortable. We can get into that complacency mindset of like, hey, things were, they kind of sucked back then when I was always in the weeds, and now I'm out of the weeds and I feel pretty good right here. But I don't know if I really want to push that hard to get to that next level. But having that intentional, dedicated effort and that level of accountability behind that, I completely agree. I think that is the thing that holds you accountable to that action.
I worked with a really great contractor early in my consulting career up in Boston. So a New York Yankee fan had to go up to Red Sox territory. And he and I got along great. We still do. And basically, when I got there, they were having troubles, and we got them straightened out in pretty short order. And he went on to great success. And I called him up one day and go, Tim, looking back, what would you say was the change? He goes, Al, I was asking my team to be accountable to me, but I refused to be accountable to anybody until you showed up. And, we had a plan, and you would hold my feet to the fire. And that's really what I needed. and so that I could be accountable and get things done, and then be able to move that down the org chart so that so the rest of my team could really make a change. I was accountable, even though I had two older brothers I was accountable to. I was accountable to my dad, but I felt I was accountable to my customers, and so my mindset shift, really changed when I realized it has to be good for the customer, to be good for the company, to be good for the staff. That is the order of things. Anything other than that is always going to be an issue. And so that accountability, I believe, is really strong. My first real professional gig, I was doing on the stage, and I was talking at a big convention, get to the bar where all work is done. The guy taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "Hey, I heard what you said up there. I'm an electrician, and I need you to come work on my shop." So I took another sip of my beer and turned around and said, "Well, how big is your shop now?" He goes, "I have 25 trucks." I go, "Wow, you have 25 trucks? So why do you need me?" He goes, "I'm like a swan swimming on a pond that looks calm, but underneath my feet are going crazy." He said, "I can't scale this thing from here." And sure enough, we worked together and did the rest of it, got him, 10X them, but really in a sound way that was repeatable, not 10X with a lot of gasoline. So the point that why I'm coming to this is because he said one day while in the middle of our work, he says, "Al, I always imagined that there were doors that I had to break through in the stage of business." And he goes, "And what I've discovered with our work is we've got things calmed down and we're scaling and doing the rest of the stuff and growing, not with our heads chopped off. There are more doors that I didn't even know existed." He said, "But here's what I can tell you. These new doors are much more fun to go through."
It's beautiful. And I think that's part of the challenge of running a business is you don't know what you don't know. And I think we can all relate. I don't care what level of entrepreneurship you're in, of that fear of the unknown and just the to your point, paddling your legs as hard as you can as a swan. Like everything looks super calm on the surface, but under that's where the real stress and anxiety exists. Now,
yeah. I think they would say imposter syndrome is what most of us feel like. And for those, that's fancy, but it's like, am I really worthy? I mean, I'm really a tech. Am I worthy of this? Do I know enough? All these people are coming to me and I'm like putting on a brave face. Well, you know what? We all do. Having said that, you've got to be able to be I think, and it's not my line. Leaders are readers. And I know that's hard because at this stage of my life, I read a lot. And you've got to pick who you listen to. One more tip, as you read a ton of business books, they're great ideas, but you've got to put it on the master project list if it's something you really want to do. This again is how you get control of things. So one of the books that changed me, because I was 50 pounds heavier than if you see this video, than I am today. And the reason why is because I was eating my stress. So yeah, we eat our stress, we drink our stress, we drug our stress. Stress is a killer. There's a reason my tagline has always been less stress, more success. That was not picked by accident. I was making a ton of money, and my good industry friends, Ellen and Dan, that I mentioned already, they came to me as great friends would do and go, "Listen, you're on a bad path. You're going to be a really rich dead guy at a young age. That's not a good thing." And so the book they wanted me both to read, this is back in the 90s, is Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. And here's a delicious thing. It is popular today. It is popular today again, because it doesn't leave. I'll give you the essence of it. Do read it. But basically what it told me immediately is if I'm always working in the business, which I was, and we were 70 people, by the way, 7-0. We're in a small company. So if you're thinking, "Oh, I'll get around to working on my business," 70 people already. Got it? And so it told me, I would say, was the biggest thing is if you're always working in the business and never on it, nothing's going to change. Number one, I now knew why things didn't work. And when I described this, great hotel and a few other things about, they were systematic. So if something went wrong, the clerk knew how to square it away at the desk. It wasn't like they had to think about anything. They knew exactly what to do. Room's not ready, do this. there's something that's wrong in the restaurant, do this. And I realized that's what I needed to bring to my business, which are these systems. So people weren't just winging it, trying to read my mind, trying to figure out what's what. And so that really was the big impetus. And so now I knew what I needed to do, but it didn't give me any help in the how. But I was really good in how. And I knew right away I needed operating manuals. But really, an org chart is the bingo board of which you need all these boxes. And then you also need to cover each box with its own operating manual, which is a playbook. Operating manuals are not the same thing as AI SOPs or just SOPs, standard operating procedures. Those are good checklists. In the absence of nothing, SOPs are great. And so is AI, but it's not the same as a playbook. And the playbook, if you've played any sports, tells you how to play the center, the tight end, whatever the position that you are in the thing. And speaking of box org charts, the next thing is a depth chart. So when you say to me, Al, that's great, I'll get a box chart when I get bigger. You don't understand by not having the right box org chart, not the fancy one with the C-suite titles, not CIO, CFO, CEO. Yeah, blow up your ego all you want. Because I worked in, $250 million companies, and I go, I'm not interested in that. It's a very flat chart. You can do what you want afterwards, but who reports to who? And really the 4 reasons that my union shop, I will repeat that, union shop from New York City bought into our program about this was because the org chart told them, where am I today, even if you don't like it? And if we're offering a career, not a job, which we did starting in the 80s, is we built our own pipeline and moved everybody from the bottom up, either up or out, one of the two things. And then they used to hate that they thought they did a great job. And one of the 4 Levies amongst the other managers would show up and go, well, that's not what I wanted. As if what we were asking them to really do, Austin, was to read our mind, because there was nothing objective. And I always share this story. I had 5 install crews, aside from my, the service department. And the 5 install crews, one of my many jobs, that's why I talk about, you fill many boxes. So in the morning, back in the days of handwriting, and I would give instructions to the 5 crews how to go out and do what we want. And open the window. The last guy I want to speak to is Bobby, who I had trained from flipping pizzas to be now installing heating equipment. And I say to him this day, I said, Bobby, read that over, because I'm not going to be able to be there at 10 o'clock. I've got things I have to do. I can be there at 2 o'clock. He goes, oh, Al, I got it. I see what you want. I get to the basement at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I walk around the basement, and I am muttering to myself every 4-letter word that a New Yorker knows, but not too loud. And then I say to Bobby, meet me by your truck. We go outside and go, this is nothing like what I wanted. He goes, oh, your brother Richie showed up and said, do it this way. And in that moment, the pain came flooding, because I realized we never had any way of doing our jobs. And now what had happened here is the customer got compromised. Bobby had a bad day. I had a bad day. Nobody's winning in this scenario. And Bobby and I really began to break it down. And he goes, Al, I have to admit this. I feel like you lay awake at night trying to figure out how to ruin my day. And I said, Bobby, I feel the same way, and we can fix this together. And it was really Bobby who coined the most impressive hook line, because when it came to selling, after we created the manuals and it was together in a collaborative effort, there's a lot that goes into this. And we were rolling it out. Bobby went around telling all the guys, do what's in the book, you're off the hook. Because what I was saying to him is, if you do this and we don't like the results, it's on us. We can always change it and do what you want. Yep.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, look, there's only 2 reasons a problem exists in a company. It's either a process problem or a personnel problem. Typically, it should be a process problem. If they're following the process and the process is broken, it does not deliver the expected outcome, just go fix that process, retrain the team, right? You've mentioned a few things that I want to touch on here.
Okay.
The first is E-Myth Revisited. Highly recommend, if you are an entrepreneur, you've not read that book, go read it. It's timeless.
Michael Gerber. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And it's funny. I didn't recognize how important the concept of working on the business versus in the business was until I recognized that your time, you will find a way to fill up that time with something that does not involve working on the business unless you have dedicated, intentional time blocks to do just that. So it was a little while ago, I started blocking off my entire Monday. Monday is my day for deep work, where we work on, we follow entrepreneurial operating system here at Base Coat Marketing. And with EOS, we have rocks, which are just our 90-day world. It's all very similar to what you're talking about, just in a different format. And our 90-day rocks are like our most important things that we're working on over the next 90 days. And with that time, it's been the one thing that's allowed us to actually get those things done. It's those most important actions within the company that if we don't do them, we are not going to succeed as a company, because otherwise we're going to be paddling, in the same spot where we're at today. We're just treading water, right?
Yeah. Same mistakes, new day.
Exactly. And the one thing I actually wanted to back up even a little further on, and I want to get your input on this because this is fascinating to me. You brought up the fact that you worked in a commodities type of business, which I would argue most companies are going towards a commodity style business today with the roll up of private equity in most trades and contracting style companies, right? They've already started roll-ups in HVAC, plumbing. They're moving over to landscaping. Painting is definitely on the short list.
Garage doors.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So with that said, it's no longer about being the best, or is it? Because how do you transform from being a commodities-based business, which is you're shopping around for the cheapest price, to being a company that has a brand following or brand loyalty built around you?
So, we had always been a very big referral business. That's how my dad and my uncle, the generation before us, had succeeded. And we, word of mouth and things of that nature were really good, but also, who has our customers and really good relationships with them and earning their trust to be recommending us and vice versa. So one of the things is I was blessed, and this sounds funny, with a great competitor who I hated because they had white trucks. Now, white is not the best color, but what was the perception of our industry? Fuel oil, it's dirty. So what did they do? They put white trucks out there. They got their guys dressed up totally different than us, because most of us look like the dirtiest garage mechanic that you would ever see. My brothers and I, we had dress standards, and every time we just tried to lower them, they proved they could go under that. So finally we said, no, the heck of it. We're going to just give high dress standards and give them a reason to dress better. And of course they stepped up. So my competitor was the best thing. And my father told me years back, bless your competition, because if you're paying attention, they can make you better. He said, you're not your good competition's your problem. It's your bad competition that ruins the industry. That's your problem. So we had to straighten out our act, is really what I'm saying here, Austin. We were not born enlightened. The other thought that I want before it slips out of my head here is, in my programs today, and when I was working with customers, I taught them time management. There's a program within the operating manual systems and the staffing system that teaches you how to do time management effectively, take control of your calendar, getting personal, and the rest of it, all the other stuff. It will take you 2 hours to go through this program once. Listen to what I said, 2 hours. Out of 100 people who buy these programs, would you like to guess how many people navigate that whole program?
13%.
Pretty good. 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is the number one complaint? Oh, I don't have enough time. Well, yeah, you're not going to make time if you don't do this time management program and learn how to master these techniques. So yeah, there's ways. Now that again is working. We love to throw this line around, and I do as well. Work smarter, not harder. But what do we do in our own things? We work hard every day because we're just bailing. It's easy to, when I worked with contractors, like I was talking about, I had an order of things that I would do, and I would have some flexibility on how I delivered the 7 powers. But for those who ran the gauntlet and did all 7, the last program I did was leadership power. The last program I did. And every contractor loved leadership power. And invariably they would ask me, why did we do leadership power first? I said, the reason we didn't, because when I arrived, you were in a pool about to drown, that is not the time to teach you to swim. My job is to get you out of the water and let's start from beginning, which was planning power. So yeah, leadership, whatever you do it, that's okay. But the point of it is, I like to put the foundation in and think of the 7 powers. I worked with 2 types of companies in all the years. It was either typically a family business or partners who acted like family, who were unrelated. And basically they worked really, really hard, but they ran out of hours in a day, days in a week, weeks in a month. They just couldn't manufacture more time and they couldn't clone themselves. Yeah, no kidding. So they needed these systems so that they could bring other people on and get them effective and be able to work on the things they needed to do. And then I had worked with great contractors who had already figured out how to make the phone ring off the hook. But the bad news is they were so lacking in systems or broken systems or systems not followed that every time the phone rang, it was gasoline to a fire that was already burning. And so my job was, believe it or not, the same systems had to get underneath. So what most of us have done, even if you've got some success, congratulations, not easy. But most of you have decided to build your beautiful home, which is your company, on either bad ground or broken ground or ground that's going to go off a cliff. And if you don't get your foundation squared away, you're sabotaging yourself.
So the one thing that I'm picking up based on the things that you're saying is you're solving problems for others. And I think the one thing that coaching does very well is, again, it gives you a shortcut. Now, what I've identified after going through, I don't know, I think I have like 6 different business advisors, life coaches, in some capacity, finance, operations, leadership, all sorts of fun stuff. One thing I have identified is I can go to this all 6 people with the same problem, and they're all going to give me various answers, or they're going to tell me the same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for instance, I was actually just working on my gap map. It's a personal objective of mine to focus on mind, body, relationships, and business each quarter, one objective, creating new habits and all that kind of stuff. And I was just working on that today. I was talking to one of my other business advisors last week about some of the challenges I was having with coming up with some of my goals for the next quarter. And we talked through it. I still left with a little uncertainty behind it. Just talked to somebody this morning, crystal clear as to what the next steps look like. I believe repetition and communication is great. Now, to get to my question here, I don't believe there's ever such thing as a problem that's unique to an individual in our day and age. I think that all of the problems that could possibly be problems in business, especially if we get down into the niche of contractors, everybody's already experienced the same problem that you're experiencing. It's why coaching works so well. So my question for you, Al, is what makes your model different than any other coaching model out there? What makes you unique?
I think what makes me unique and why people said, well, why hire you, was the question, whether they voiced it or I knew it was the hidden objection that they hadn't voiced. And I said, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I haven't done myself and know that it works, or others that I've worked with who have put it in place and make. So you're never my guinea pig. That's number one. Number two, I could disconnect from my business for a month, come back and it was still running. Can you do that? Now, the thing is about these 7 systems is that you may have an org chart, but it's just like all over the place and it doesn't hit the 4 reasons why my union shop did it, because I had to work my way through. I belong to an organization called Nexstar, which is a phenomenal group, but it was called C2000. That's where I met Ellen all those years ago. But everything that they gave me was great. And I was around in a bigger pool with smarter people than I had been before if I'd only stayed where I was in the fuel oil business. And that was why my friend Dan had recommended that you've got to get out of this small pool and go where you need to go, which was this place. So it was bad news is that I couldn't use what they were giving me off the shelf. And it was good news that I couldn't use it because I had to open up the hood and figure out how to make it work for me. And that's kind of the essence that I have. One caution I will give, I want to make sure the listeners, Austin knows how to manage 6 voices in his head. I would not recommend that to you. And even myself, I never argue with success. If it's successful and you can scale it and you can make it work And like I said, at the end, you can take a month off and you come back and your business is still running the way that it should, then you're great. Just do more. But the fact of the matter is that you've got to find a system that you believe in. And of course, it's like everything else. Who else has used it behind me? So when I was doing this, first thing that I did was give customers testimonials of like, listen, don't take my word for it. These are the customers who were just like you having the same problem. And that they created a testimonial because they were helped and they want to help you. So that's really kind of the big thing. When I worked with guys, I would say to them, I said, you're welcome to work with your other, but we have to watch. So when Ellen and I would work together, and we did do co-consulting, we also owned a franchise together, Zoom Drain Sewer franchise, who was actually my customer in 2005. He wanted a franchise the first day that I was there. So this is always a funny story. In 2005, he'd come home from the Air Force, very buttoned up, very tight, very orderly. And he says to me, Al, I follow everything that you do. He says, I want that here. We don't fly airplanes without manuals and systems and things of that nature. You go, I would like to license and franchise this. And I turned my eyes slowly left to right, looking at his guys, looking at his trucks. And it was 5 trucks at the time. And I come back to him and I go, Jim, I have an idea. Let's see if we can get them dressed right, here on time, and get their trucks cleaned out before we go license and franchise this thing. And so when we did the manuals, and he says, well, how do I take control? I says, you go through the manuals with them, you get them to speak it out loud, because the only words that anyone ever listens to are the words that fall out of their mouths. You could talk all day, and I had this with my daughter when she was a teenager. I was talking to her about something, and she was just moving her hand like a clapping motion, mimicking me talking. And I quickly realized that, she's telling me that she's not listening. And so getting them to talk is really the key thing. So, and when they do make a mistake, instead of you reading the manual, tell them to have them read the manual. So he calls me up excited. I go, what are you so excited about, Jim? He goes, the part about the guys have to be here on a meeting on time, or, they can't attend. So I see a guy walking down the hallway. I know he's already late. I literally kicked the door closed in his face. And I run the meeting. I won't let him in. I open the door, and the guy standing there, he goes, but I was only going to be like a couple of minutes late. And he just puts his hand up and go, open the technician manual and read for me what it says about being on time for meetings. So the guy does. And he looks at Jim and he says, I will never be late to another meeting again. And he said, after that, he's been here 15 minutes early every time. Now that sounds like a small thing, but that really, he understood right away that he was pushing the rock up the hill the right way instead of the rock falling back on him. Because if you can't do the little things, you can't do the big things, in my opinion. You can't get them dressed right. Can't get them here on time. Can't have them clean and sober. Can't have, their trucks neat and clean. Can't have them restocked and refurbished the right way. These are all things that are foundational things you need.
So I was interviewing another entrepreneur the other week, Chasm. He's exited several multi-8-figure companies, and he has a very unique hiring process, and he very firmly believes in people build the company, right? I stand behind that. I also recognize that systems are very important to the structure of your company, and the people follow those systems. But he brought up an analogy of, as an entrepreneur, most of us look at hiring somebody. We're dragging a sled up a hill. It's a muddy hill. We're slipping in the mud, and we throw them in the back of that sled, and we say, get on, like we're going to all climb this hill together, but they're not really pulling the sled. They're just more or less dead weight in the back that you're telling them what to do. Now, that analogy really resonated with me, as I think as entrepreneurs, we've all been there before, where we bring somebody new on and we immediately tell them what to do. But in reality, like, we want them to tell us what to do, and we want them to help pull that sled up that muddy uphill battle. So my question for you, Al, is, in the world of business, when there's systems and there's people, how do we find the right people? How important are people compared to the systems that we create?
And I'm going to give you the patented consulting answer in that it depends. And so what I really want to say is I am a systems first that empowers people. And what I mean by that is when you get really good, because we got really good at, I got my family is a story that goes to this. I woke up one day in a cold sweat from sleep, and then I went into the office. We had a very small office. My father felt that we don't make money with the four of us in this room. Go out and do something. And so we're in the little office, and I'm talking to the three of them, and I said, I woke up today in a cold sweat thinking that all of these guys could quit tomorrow, and what will we do? But the other thing I feel is we're a hostage to them. I said, how do you feel? And they all said, yeah, we feel the same way. So what are you going to do about it? And just the way I said it. I said, I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and we're going to fix this. So that was the birth of spending $150,000 in today's money on the operating manuals that my dad helped me write, because before I was trying to write my own manuals, and they came out like a law book, article dash 6.3.57, and nobody would read it. Nobody would pay attention to it. He was the one that told me that, you know what, your CSR affects your dispatcher affects your tech. So we're going to be around the table and working these things out and doing objectively. So we paid off that $150,000 FYI within 2 years. Our callbacks went down. We always had more calls than we could do. We could put people on the road. All of these things were really good. So this really started to move us in the right momentum stage. And with this, I could create my own pipeline. So we were looking for, instead of top down, so a lot of the big companies were always about like, what should my managers do? What should my managers do? The first day I walk in, and then finally I would put my pen down and just look at them and go, right now, nothing. And you can imagine paying me big money. That was not the answer they were looking for. And I said, because you think the managers are going to make everything work right. That's top down. I believe in bottom up. Because what happens is they can't be managers, because every 5 minutes, it's got a minute, got a minute, got a minute, got a minute, got a minute. When you want to know where your day goes, all of you listeners out there, that's exactly where it goes. They don't know what to do. They don't know what they're empowered to do. So they literally have to knock on the phone. But now, of course, they can text you, Slack you, they can email, they can do everything to disrupt your day all day long, that you will never be a manager. So what we were looking for is willing, knowing that we had the ability to get people to fill the box and then get ready for the next box. The only thing that we really were looking for when you talk about people per se is we had to watch that we didn't become like we're the only ones who have a great idea. So we would literally go outside of the company periodically to do that. But we were not people first. Willing, yes. I cannot fix unwilling. And so willing apprentice with no skills, we could take to a willing tech with great skills. And then here's the story and proof to this is the kids, quote unquote, that I trained in the 90s, 2000, before I left, they all became the top guys at the company. And they've just moved their way up the boxes based on objective ways and objective training to the point where they all retired with a bunch of money, which was really great for everybody. So it's a different set of opinions on it. Do I think great people are important to a company? Of course I do. I also think I actually got straightened out here. Let me share a moment here. In the process, Dan had impressed upon us is that they have to talk because they do the work and we need to get their input. So a problem for us, because we were 24/7, 365, we used to answer our phones live. We had a terminal that was open and they would answer the phone. And I would come in the first thing in the morning at like 6:35 and I get a message from the terminal and I'd look at it and go, what did you write down here? And I had to call the tech who was not on call. He was on a shift, who had just gotten home maybe 2 a.m. in the morning and go, hey, I'm looking at this ticket and I don't understand what it says. And so I'd have to wake him up. So we're in a meeting, group of guys, and the fellow's name is Joe. And Joe goes, hey, I got an idea. Now recognize this was around 1996. He says, let's create a dedicated phone line that only us techs have, and we'll have an answering machine. I mean, when I come off that last call, I'm going to call and say, I was at Mrs. Smith's house, 123 Main Street. There are 5 pumps. I left a tag on the one that needs to be changed. She's expecting us between 9 and 11 in the morning tomorrow to get that squared away. Good night. And all of us looked at each other and gave ourselves like a forehead slap. And for me, it was like, wow, I do not have to be the only guy who can solve problems.
It's a miracle.
Miracle, exactly. A miracle. It was eye-opening. Now, again, he was not raw. He was a guy who's out. So this, I know it's kind of like where I'm going back and forth. Great systems make great companies with willing people. How's that?
Man, the one thing you mentioned there, that if somebody takes nothing else away from listening to this interview, which I know that they will, but is willing. People have to want it. You cannot make somebody want to do their job. And want is obviously a very subjective measure, right? People can want it at different degrees. But you can train somebody who wants it to be somebody great in your company. They don't really want it. And if they don't really know what the want means and what the responsibilities of that want are, that can be a challenge. So you've nailed it on the head there. So going back to this.
I have help. I have help, Austin, if you're interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was working with another consultant, and he had this willingness test, and it was so good, I paid him so that I could use it. So this willingness test is you're interviewing somebody, and halfway down in the interview, I taught every client this. Halfway down the interview, you look up and you tell the person there and you go, Austin, this is going to sound weird, but part of our hiring practice is I'm going to sing and you need to join in. I know that's embarrassing, so I'm going to sing first. Happy birthday to you. Now, I have already proved that 1, I will sing, and 2, I have a really bad voice. So as bad as your voice is, not a problem. And if they don't join in, you don't stop the interview. But at the end of it, it's already proven that they're very stiff and they're not willing. And so I told this to the guys, and guys are going, they'll never do it. And I go, yeah, they will. And I don't mean just anybody. I mean, everybody would do this test because you don't want to do it. And if you prove you will do it. So the reason I actually got onto this was there was a guy at one of the meetings that I was at, and there's a guy on the stage talking about, willingness, and said, yeah, it all sounds good, but how do you do that? He goes, well, this willingness test I learned. I go, that sounds like crazy stuff. He goes, yeah, it is crazy good. I will never hire anybody anymore without doing a willingness test. So one of my guys who's a very, straight-laced guy, kind of really bugging, but we practiced it together. And about a year later, he calls me up and goes, you want to hear a funny one? I said, sure do. He goes, it's around Christmas time. So I told the guy that, we have to sing. So I began to sing Happy Birthday. And the guy says to me, would it be all right if I sing a Christmas carol? He goes, go for it. And so it was like, and he goes, he says he's been here a while. I mean, he is great. Great.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, look, it's the kind of out of the box thinking during the interview process that I really truly believe will help you weed out and test those that you're potentially going to put on your team and put in front of your customers, right? It's so important. Getting back to my question about systems versus people, we've established kind of what the people part of that is, but systems, right? There's 2 mindsets or thought processes around having a good system. And that is, does it need to be thorough or does it need to be simple? And there's 2 don't always align. What's your mindset around building good systems and processes?
So again, we were plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, and I thought that's who I'd be working with. I started doing this in 2002 exclusively. And of course, the contractors found out about me through, so I ended up working with a garage door company, kitchen cabinetry, a condo builder. And I have never built a condo in my entire life. I actually had a commercial photographer in my programs. It's just really weird, but it goes back to what my dad told me. He says, guys always love to say that my business is different. Then he holds his thumb and his forefinger very small apart. He goes, that's how different we all are. We have the same problems answering the phones, dispatching customers' texts, customer satisfaction. They're all the same thing. Paying the bills, trucks, things of that nature. And we were serial entrepreneurs, my family, in that we owned a series of dairy stores. We had a series of liquor stores. We had multi-state real estate. And so from a very early age, I was in the back of the room with my two brothers. My dad would put us in as teenagers in the back of the room. He goes, sit here, don't talk, write notes. I will answer all your questions when I get done. And sure enough, we really got this whole thing down about it. His point, though, really was, and so I want to make sure I'm speaking to you guys, is that the main business is the golden goose. Don't kill the golden goose because you're so distracted by your other businesses. So if you're in painting, master that. If you're in coding, master that. If you feel there's a cross between the two, master those. And then once you've got those systems, you can start to go a little wider to diversify yourself into other trades because it becomes really systematic. That's how we were able to jump from fuel oil to plumbing to gas heating and air conditioning, and finally electrical.
So good. Now, the thing I like about your model and your message is it seems to be built around stable, sane, scalable growth, right? There's, I think, this Instagram influencer generation that has this grind mindset of you got to work, 20 hours a day. You got to work on your weekends. There's no days off. And sure, that can be needed in some cases, but I firmly believe that's not scalable or sane or healthy. And, there's some metric of success around that. But at the end of the day, I prefer the old school mindset of scaling a business, which was not always like it is today, right? I think we move so fast that we don't have to break shit and move quick, right? It doesn't need to be that way. I think we've just all thought it has to be that way.
I hear you. And I have to tell you that the business has changed in that the ability to grow really big, really fast is much more available than it was years ago.
Yeah.
And the size of companies is also, we were 17 million back in the 90s. And I thought that was really a big company. And today that's good, but not great. And just because our mindset, it's kind of like the famous, really old example is till Roger Bannister ran under 4-minute mile, nobody could. And as soon as he did it, everyone could.
That's right.
So that is true. The question is, can you just generate gross sales? So guys used to love to show me their financials. Be aware, I understand financials, but I'm not your financial expert. That's blessingly, Ellen took care of that. That was her thing. But the part that I wanted to know is, what is your gross sales and your gross profit? It's not one or the other, it's both. And so I need to know, that's why marketing is a mix. And I have long things about marketing power, but basically it's a mix of that. And, how do you because there's going to be low ROI things, there's going to be high ROI things, but I'm a firm believer in a marketing budget, which is how much gasoline are you putting in the tank? And the easiest one, and it's still a good rule of thumb, is percentage of sales, which means if I want to be a $10 million company, I have to have 10% or more to just hit the main, beginning of being aggressive. So that means I'm going to invest $1 million in marketing. Now you have to name what is those marketing things. So here's an example. Is a rebrand of your trucks that look awful or invisible on the road. And if you get the right trucks that are the stand-up trucks, which are more easily maintained, can carry more stuff, but they're a rolling billboard. And they're a rolling billboard in where the areas you work, where you want more people to notice you. So we invested heavily on that. So the question is that a trucking expense or a marketing expense? And the answer again is depends. In my case, it was marketing. It was a really big marketing thing for us. So we rebranded back in the 90s when that really wasn't even much of a term. And these, redo of the talk. I was lucky. I was very lucky. How are we doing on time here? We got a minute?
I think we're doing good. Yeah, go for it.
So I was invited to a Super Bowl party down the block. And the majority of these people were, were customers. But anyway, so Super Bowl parties going on. And all of a sudden I hear two people, like really New Yorkers, getting into it in each other's face. So I'm curious, and I get a little closer, and it turns out they're arguing about who has the best fuel oil heating company. Here's the bad news. They both used me, and they did not know that, because my dad and my uncle decided that when they acquired companies, they would keep the name. So Mac and Mac, B&R, Mars Oil, Hewlett, we had like 6 or 7 brands, and our trucks were cluttered with everything. And so I come back in the office, close the door, and talking to my dad and my 2 brothers about what had occurred and that we've got to go fix this. And I'm not even really through it. And my father reaches for the phone. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm calling a guy who's going to help us fix this." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, he works on Madison Avenue." For you guys who don't know, Madison Avenue in New York was the highest of the highest marketing guys you could ever get.
Mad Men. Yep.
Yep. And so that's right. So I said, "Why in the world would he take your call?" He goes, "Because I was very kind to him when he was young. He had polio or something, and he had crutches, and I was always good to him. So I'm betting he's going to take my call." So sure enough, he did. His name is Leo, and I talk about it in the book, Leo. Leo's one requirement was, you have to give me one of your sons who's going to execute our plan. So basically, Leo put me on his lap and said, "This is how we do marketing." Every great idea about marketing came from that. And he rebranded our truck, and basically he took all of it off the truck. And then I explained to him that, we had to have a color green because that was the New York City law about green identifying fuel oil trucks. So I'm hoping he's going to pick like forest green. And he goes, "This green will be really good." And I go, "Oh no, that green is horrible. It's so bright and ugly." He goes, "Al, I didn't say you have to wear a suit this color. People will see your trucks 5 blocks down the road, and that is the essence of it." And he pulled everything off. And he goes, "Also, I want you to put the decals halfway in the back of the truck on a 45-degree angle." I said, "Well, people are going to think that I don't know how to put anything level." He goes, "Yeah, because people are blind to stuff. That's marketing. You have to break the blindness." And that was kind of really what his thought here. So the catch to this was, after we got done, it looked like we had 100 trucks, not 25. I saw them everywhere when I was not looking for them. But here's the thing. My competition, who I knew, called me up and go, "Your trucks look fantastic. Will you get the guy to do my trucks?" And of course, I was like, "No."
Al, I think you have a great message, and I always like to ask somebody who comes on this this podcast here, like, what of everything that you've learned over the last decades of being a coach and in the contracting space, identifying that no problem is unique to any contractor out there. If there's one thing that you can like scream from the rooftops that you wish every contractor could hear and execute on today, what would that one thing be?
If you want your life back, like I wanted my life back, working on the business, not just in it. I don't care what size you are. And doesn't mean you don't work in the business. I worked in the business to the day that I left my business. And the reason I did is I just moved my name down the depth chart. So instead of being the second tech out, I was the 25th tech out. But I ran calls on purpose because I wanted to keep my hand in it and I wanted to do it. And I just loved when one of my techs would go is, "Oh, you can't, do it that fast, and you can't, do these things, and you can't sell these things." And I go, "I totally hear you, Austin. I'll tell you what, why don't you be my helper today, and let's go see how we do." And the same thing on the big ticket items, because I sold $1 million of heating equipment as a part-time job in the 90s, because I had a million other jobs that I needed to do. And I was a terrible salesperson at first, by the way. My father was great. He was a quiet guy, very much a servant, asked great questions, listened. And I was anything but that. And so I had to learn how to become myself, but in a better way. So the point of this is get yourself systematic. And if you can even just do the planning with taking your ideas out of your head, getting them onto that master project, top 30, top 5, and get in the habit of working the top 5, you're already going to be on a better path.
So good. Al, if somebody wanted to learn more about your coaching program and what you do over there, where might they find you?
The best place is the number 7powercontractor.com. By the way, I'll answer your question because people are still kind enough to go, hey, would you come consult with me? So I will tell you that if you backed up a tractor trailer with full of cash, I might be tempted, but I would still say no. So I have 2 programs online, Signature Operating Manual System and the Signature Staffing Program System. They are there. You can look at them. But even if you just go there, I want you to go because I have a ton of blogs that I have done with video that you can watch and you can search it. There's a lot of what you liked here, hopefully more in depth. You can go a mile deep, like Austin says, which I love. I love a mile wide and a mile deep. And so that's what is there for you. If you're interested, you can hit the contact us. There's guys that will pre-screen or do whatever that is that they talk to kind of help you out. So yeah, my sales pitch wasn't a great sales pitch because I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Amazing.
My thought is I want to help you. I hope that's what I did today.
Absolutely. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on your industry knowledge, and I would love to have you back on to go another mile deep on some of these topics. Al, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here, and I hope everybody listening in found some value today.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on that episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat as much as I did. Now, listen, if you guys are hungry for more conversations like this, go swing by our website. It's basecoatmarketing.com/podcast. And finally, we are very open to feedback. So if we haven't covered a topic or there's someone you want us to chat with, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next conversation for painters.